Hello students, I am Dr. Sudeshna Sengupta, Assistant Professor in the Department of Humanities, Krishna Engineering College, Bhilai. This video is being shot for Hemchand Yadav University, Durg. In a series of 4 lectures, I'll discuss various aspects of Tennessee Williams' play, The Glass Menagerie. So come along with me. The Glass Menagerie is a play by Tennessee Williams. It premiered in the year 1944. It's a memory play, and the term was coined by Williams himself. It is a tragedy and a family drama. The style and content are shaped and inspired by the memory of Tennessee Williams. It is partly autobiographical. Let us look at the autobiographical elements in the play. Tom is a stand-in for the playwright himself. He worked in a shoe warehouse and wrote poetry, much like Tom does in the play. Williams' given name was Thomas Lanier Williams, and he, like Tom, spent part of his youth in St. Louis with an unstable mother and sister, and his father was also absent much of the time. The autobiographical elements include St. Louis, where the play is set in, the area in which they lived in, characters based on his histrionic mother and his mentally fragile sister Rose. The characters in the play are Tom Wingfield, the narrator, his mother, Amanda Wingfield, his sister Laura Wingfield, and a friend, Jim O'Connor. Let us look at the plot. It is a memory play. Its action is drawn from the memories of the narrator. It is set in St. Louis in 1937. It is a play of 7 scenes. It opens with Tom in the present, and it is looking back in time. Scene 1. At the rise of the curtain, we see an old-fashioned tenement apartment. We also see the narrow alleyways which surround the apartment. Tom Wingfield, the narrator, enters and addresses the audience. Tom explains that the play is a memory play and that he is one of the characters in the play. The other characters are his mother Amanda, his sister Laura, and a gentleman caller. There is another character who never really appears. It is his father, who had deserted the family long years ago, and as Tom says, he was a telephone man who fell in love with long distances. We see that Amanda regales her children again and again with tales of her idyllic youth and the scores of suitors, gentlemen callers, who once pursued her. Amanda is disappointed that her daughter does not attract any gentlemen callers. Laura wears a brace on her leg and is painfully shy. Amanda enrolls Laura in a business school, hoping that she will make her own and the family's fortune through a business career. Amanda then sends Laura into the living room to practice her shorthand or typing and to stay pretty for the gentlemen callers in spite of Laura's reassertion that there will be none. In scene 2, we see that Laura is alone and is playing with her glass connection. Her glass connection, the glass menagerie, is where we get the title of the play from. Amanda finds out that Laura has dropped out of business school. Laura admits to it, and she says she was sick on the day of a test. She had been going to the museums and to bird houses in the zoo. Now Amanda starts worrying for her daughter who cannot work and who has no gentlemen callers. Laura confesses that it is not so, that she is capable of love and that she had once been infatuated of Jim, a boy in high school. He used to call her blue roses because she had pleurosis, which he thought sounded like blue roses. Amanda decides that Laura must get married, and she rebukes Laura for calling herself a cripple. Amanda insists that Laura needs to develop charm to overcome her shortcomings. In scene 3, we find a very heated altercation between Amanda and Tom. Tom confesses to hating his job at the shoe warehouse. Amanda accuses Tom of wasting himself in watching movies. Tom accidentally breaks a few of Laura's glass menagerie, and all this while Laura is a silent spectator. She suffers the most because she knows she is the root cause of their concern. In scene 4, Tom returns from the movie. He shares a story about the magician who escaped a nailed coffin. Unwilling, Laura trips on the fire escape as she is made to go out to fetch some bread. The outside world frightens her. Tom confesses that he watches movies for adventure and to appease his instincts. Amanda sees a parallel of this in her husband's wanderlust. In scene 4, we also find that Tom apologizes to his mother. Amanda is privy to a letter from the merchant marine and she knows that Tom will leave very soon. She's worried that Laura must be provided for before Tom leaves, and therefore she decides that a nice young man from the warehouse should be invited for dinner. In scene 5, Tom announces that a gentleman caller is coming. Amanda begins to make plans for it. She finds fault with Tom because he doesn't know enough about Jim O'Connor. Amanda likes that Jim makes about $85 a month and doesn't drink. She also likes that Jim goes to night school to improve his station in life. Tom's futile attempts to make Amanda look at Laura realistically is one of those scenes which leaves a remarkable impression on your mind as you read it. Tom tells the audience in scene 6 about Jim, the basketball player and debater. Tom is good for Jim's ego because he is a reminder of the past glories that Jim had. Amanda fusses over Laura's appearance and her own dress. Laura feels faint when she learns that it is Jim, her high school crush, who's going to visit them. However, she's forced to open the door and welcome the guest. It is revealed in the conversation between Tom and Jim that Tom is actually taking a step towards escaping from his present situation. He says that he has used the money for the light bill in order to pay his dues with the Merchant Seamen's Union. Amanda is, however, ignorant about this, and when she invites Laura to come over and join them for dinner, she realizes that Laura is actually sick. The last scene, lights go out. Tom is made to help Amanda in the kitchen. Jim and Laura interact. Jim says that he had never really noticed her cripple, and he also tells Laura that she has inferiority complex. Laura opens up to Jim and shows her collection of glass menagerie to him. Here we find the unicorn symbol. It is unique and at odds with normal, and Laura is comfortable being that. Jim and Laura dance here, and while they are dancing, the horn of the unicorn breaks. This becomes a symbol of Laura becoming normal and also Laura's heart being broken. Jim kisses Laura and he also confesses at the same time that he is engaged to be married. Amanda is very upset about this and also about the expenses and the misinformation about Jim. She cannot take responsibility for this and blames Tom of neglect. But we realize that this altercation now aggravates Tom's leaving forever. As the scene closes, Tom confesses that he left that day, but he also confesses that he never really could forget Laura. Let us look at Tom Wingfield. He's based on Tennessee Williams' own life. Tennessee gave this character his own first name, Tom. Tom has had a genteel upbringing. He writes poetry. He lives in St. Louis in the later part of his boyhood. His years of frustration and his dislike of the shoe warehouse job are reflected directly in the character of Tom Wingfield. Tom followed essentially the same pattern that Williams's life followed. Williams objectified his own subjective experiences in his literary works. Tom Wingfield is a narrator. The play is about his point of view. He has a double role to play. First, as a character whose recollections the play documents, and second, as a character who acts within those recollections. He underlines the play's tension between objectively presented dramatic truth and memory's distortion of truth. Tom sometimes addresses the audience directly, seeking to provide a more detached explanation and assessment of what has been happening on stage. He demonstrates real and sometimes juvenile emotions, shows how the nature of recollection is itself problematic. Memory often involves confronting a past in which one was less virtuous than one is now. As a single character, he is full of contradictions. On the one hand, he reads literature, writes poetry, and